Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and I'm here today to talk about my TBR for the Rent Readathon. If you're not already aware, the Rent Readathon is a readathon I'm hosting with Beck over at Mooney Reads by Starlight. It is happening all throughout February, so the 1st to the 28th, and it's a readathon we created using the characters and creator of Rent and creating prompts from those characters and creator. If you missed my announcement video, my recommendations video, and the tag video we created last year, all of those will be linked down below. The tag video is fun because all of the prompts are based on songs from this musical. This is a readathon where there are not a lot of rules. Basically, we have 3 prompts per character or the creator, and you can do as many prompts as you want. You can try to read books based on all of the prompts from one character, several characters, one from each character. You can read literally one book that covers any of these 24 prompts, and you win. You participated. I'm personally going to try to check off at least one prompt from each character, and a lot of the books I'm going to talk about could actually be used for other prompts as well. I just had to start somewhere when I was trying to figure out which prompts I was going to do, so I decided one per, and then we'll go from there. When it comes to Mark, the prompts were a book about film, a book with a Jewish protagonist, as well as a memoir or biography. I'm actually covering at least 2 of those with my book. Because oh my goodness, not only does this have a wonderful title, it's got the world's longest subtitle. Not actually, there are some longer, but this one is pretty long, and that's why I'm going to read it to you off my phone. The title in question is A Queer and Pleasant Danger, the true story of a nice Jewish boy who joins the Church of Scientology and leaves 12 years later to become the lovely lady she is today. I was planning on reading at least some of the synopsis of each of these books, but that subtitle basically gives you the synopsis of this book. This, like most of the books on this list, I'm actually getting from my public library, so it's just basically me crossing my fingers hoping that my holds come in an appropriate amount of time. I actually do this thing where I put things on hold and then I suspend the hold so I get to the top of the queue, and then when I'm ready for the book, I try to tell the library about a week before I want the book that yes, now is the time that I would like to pick up the book, and then I will probably have it within the next week or so, depending on how busy they are, that type of thing. Because my library system has 12 branches and sometimes the book is at a completely different branch than where I pick up my books. Roger's prompts were a book about music, a contemporary, or a book that deals with addiction. I've decided to just straight up go for a contemporary. And the one I'm finally going to get around to is Here the Whole Time. This is a queer book that was translated from Portuguese, and I'm just going to read you the beginning of the synopsis. The charm and humor of To All the Boys I've Loved Before and Dumplin' in this body-positive YA love story between 2 boys who must spend 15 days living with each other over school break. What would you do if you had to spend the next 15 days with your lifelong crush? Not only is that part of the synopsis, I'm asking you, what would you do? Let me know in the comments. For Team Maureen, we're looking for something with bisexual rep, we're looking for something weird, and we're looking for either a poetry collection or something about a performing artist. For this one, I've decided to go with the something weird, and I've decided to read Hollow Kingdom. I actually saw this author talk about this book at Geek Girl Con in 2019, and it's been on my radar ever since. Additionally, my friend Peter also did an interview with this author over on his channel, which is Stacks and Facts, so I'll try to remember to link that down below. The synopsis of this one is interesting. One pet crow fights to save humanity from an apocalypse in this uniquely hilarious debut from a genre-bending literary author. Yes, our protagonist is a crow. Need I say more? For Joanne, we want a book centering law, we want a non-fiction, and we want something with lesbian rep. I've decided to go with Centering the Law, and again, this is another title that is very, very long, so I'm gonna read it off my phone. Missing from the Village, the story of serial killer Bruce MacArthur, the search for justice, and the system that failed Toronto's queer community. Based on that title, you will probably be able to surmise that this synopsis might not be for the faint of heart. The tragic and resonant story of the disappearance of 8 men, the victims of serial killer Bruce MacArthur, from Toronto's queer community, and the failures of the social and political systems which allowed the cases to go unsolved for so long. I'm so glad that people are finally starting to realize that Canada just isn't that better version of America. We have our own problems. And I won't say I'm excited to read this, but I feel it is my duty as a queer person to read up on this history that nobody told me about. Angel's prompts are to read a book about anti-capitalism, read a romance or a book centering another type of love, and to read a book with trans rep. I've decided to go the anti-capitalism route, and I'm reading Capitalism, a Ghost Story. Part of the synopsis reads as follows. Capitalism, a Ghost Story examines the dark side of democracy in contemporary India and shows how the demands of globalized capitalism have subjugated billions of people to the highest and most intense forms of racism and exploitation. So yeah, February is gonna have some dark reading. For college, you're meant to read a book about a teacher or a book that teaches you something. You're meant to read a sci-fi, or you're meant to read a book with a queer person of color. I've decided to read an arc of a sci-fi called Last Exit by Max Gladstone. 10 years ago, Zelda led a band of merry adventurers whose knacks let them travel to alternative realities and battle the black rot that threatened to unmake each world. Zelda was a warrior, Ish could locate people anywhere, Ramon always knew what path to take, Sarah could turn catastrophe aside, keeping them all connected, Sal, Zelda's lover, and the group's heart, until their final failed mission, when Sal was lost, when they all fell apart. If this one sounds interesting to you, it comes out February 22nd, and you can probably pre-order it now. There's probably many links in many places to do that, including your local bookstore or requesting it from your library. For Mimi, you're meant to read a book centering AIDS or HIV, a graphic novel, and a book with a fiery character. I've decided to go with the first prompt, and again, I seem to be reading only books with very long titles. I will be reading To the Friend Who Did Not Save My Life, which is translated from French. The synopsis in part reads, in To the Friend Who Did Not Save My Life, critically acclaimed French writer Hervé Guibert, which I'm still not sure I'm saying correctly, but I've said it so many times I just need to move past it. Hervé Guibert, Guibert, has created an unnervingly intimate novel about an imaginative and vital young man confronted with the ominous specter of AIDS in his life. Le Nouvel Observateur calls it a masterpiece. 50% chance that my French immersion best friend will be in the comments mocking my French. From my understanding, this was a novel he wrote shortly after finding out that he was HIV positive. This book is from 1990, and it was brought to my attention by Jen the librarian, who is trying to do a challenge where we read queer books in translation, and that's why I picked it up. This is actually, I think, the only book that I bought for this challenge, because I was also buying it for that challenge. And assuming BC doesn't have any more catastrophes, it should actually get to me by the beginning of February. For Jonathan Larson, we're looking for a book set in New York, a book set in the future, and a dystopian. For this one, I've decided to go with a book set in New York, and this one actually fits prompts from so many other categories, but we're just going with that one. That book is Drag King Dreams by Leslie Feinberg. From award-winning and best-selling author Leslie Feinberg comes Drag King Dreams, the story of Max Rabanowitz, a butch lesbian bartender at an East End village club where drag kings perform. I've said it before and I'll say it again, one of my biggest critiques about the RuPaul's Drag Race franchise is there haven't been any drag kings yet, and some of the best drag performers I've ever seen have been drag kings, so get on it. In the recommendations, Beck also highly recommended this book, so I'm very glad I was able to fit it into this TBR. I also had a couple of other books that fit specific prompts that I also wanted to talk about, but those are my first 8, and then after that, these other 2 books are priorities. The first one is for the mark prompt of a Jewish protagonist, and that's Letters from Cuba. The story of a young Jewish girl who escapes Poland to make a new life in Cuba while she works to rescue the rest of her family. Apparently this book, although it is a novel, is based on the family history of the author. Additionally, a book that I could put down as being about music or about a performing artist is The Storyteller by Dave Grohl. I don't really follow all that much music. If you're not like a friend of mine who's a musician, I don't really probably know your music. With a few exceptions, but I'm kind of that person. I don't really follow music all that closely. However, I live with 2 people who do follow music, and one of them in particular absolutely loves this dude, which means that when this book came out, even though he's not a big reader, 2 people gave this to him as a gift. If you're not familiar with who Dave Grohl is, he was part of Nirvana, he's been the Foo Fighters head man for ages. That's basically all I know about the dude, besides he's apparently a living legend. And my friend Savy over at Savy Writes Books actually did a very long, in-depth video about this book that made me want to read it, even though I don't really know who Dave Grohl is besides the basics. And there you have it. Those are the first 10 books that I will probably read for the Rent Readathon. I also made this TBR completely forgetting that Demonathon will be happening in February as well, and that's happening in the latter half of February. So we'll see if I even do anything for that readathon, or if some of these books make it into those prompts. I don't know what's going to happen because we have no idea what the prompts are yet. What are you reading for the Rent Readathon? Let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!